Jeremy Clarkson just wrote 9 words that made half of Britain furious, and the other half quietly nod their heads. He didn't shout it on television. He didn't post it on social media. He wrote it, calmly, in his weekly newspaper column, the same column he's written for over a decade. And within hours, it was everywhere. People called him smug, privileged, out of touch. But here's what almost nobody is talking about. The same farm that made Jeremy Clarkson millions has itself taken public money. And that one detail changes this entire story. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why this wasn't really about benefits at all. Let's rewind. Jeremy Clarkson isn't just a television presenter anymore. Since Diddley Squat Farm and the Farmer's Dog Pub took over his life, he's become something else entirely. A voice for rural Britain. Farmers who feel forgotten. Small business owners drowning in red tape. People who feel like nobody in Westminster is listening to them. And every Sunday, in the Sunday Times, he gets a page to say whatever he wants. Most weeks, it's tractors, sheep, something going wrong with his barley. Harmless stuff. But this week was different. This week, Clarkson turned his attention to something far more sensitive. The welfare system. Specifically, personal independence payment, and the wider cost of benefits spending in the UK. And what he proposed next is the reason your screen is probably full of arguments about him right now. Clarkson's idea was simple, almost childishly simple. Every week, when benefits are paid out, the recipient would be handed the email address of a randomly selected working person. Someone who gets up, goes to a job, and pays the taxes that fund the welfare system. And the recipient would then be required to write that stranger a genuine thank you message, explaining exactly what they spent the money on that week. If they didn't send it, the payment stops. Then Clarkson did what Clarkson always does. He imagined the email himself. A mock thank you note, dripping in sarcasm, thanking the taxpayer for being so kind as to go to work every day, so the claimant didn't have to. Thanking them specifically for helping buy an even bigger television. Now read that again, because on paper, that's a satire. It's exaggeration. It's the same trick he's used for 25 years on Top Gear. Say something outrageous, watch the reaction, let the outrage do the talking. Except this time, the target wasn't a Vauxhall Astra. It was millions of people who rely on the state to survive. And that's where things exploded. Within hours of the column landing, social media turned on him. One post called him overprivileged and smug, and pointed out something Clarkson himself has never really addressed head-on. His own farm has received public agricultural subsidies. The same system of public money he was mocking, in a roundabout way, had also helped keep Diddley Squat afloat. Another user did the maths publicly, pointing out that under Clarkson's plan, over 13 million pensioners receiving the state pension would technically have to send a weekly email. So would millions of workers who receive in-work benefits to themselves. Someone dug up an old quote from comedian Stuart Lee, a line that's followed Clarkson around for over a decade, a joke about how, out of all the Top Gear hosts, you'd think Clarkson would be the most disliked, given how many politically incorrect opinions he's allowed to publish every single week, to a deadline in a national newspaper. The comment sections filled up fast, screenshots spread, and within a day, Clarkson benefits was trending, for all the wrong reasons. To a lot of people watching from outside, it looked like Clarkson had finally gone too far. But here's the part most headlines conveniently left out. Not everyone was angry. In fact, plenty of people read the exact same column and came away agreeing with him. One commenter, Neil Orpin, put it plainly. Clarkson wasn't being cruel. He was being sarcastic to make a point. And that point, according to Orpin and thousands like him, is one that rarely gets said out loud without instant backlash. That the benefit system in Britain is genuinely being abused by a minority, which means the people who actually need it, the ones with no other option, end up getting less. And taxpayers keep footing a bill that keeps climbing. That's the uncomfortable middle ground nobody on social media wants to sit in. Because the moment you say, some people abuse the system, you get accused of attacking everyone who uses it. And the moment you say, the system needs protecting for genuine claimants, you get accused of being heartless for even suggesting reform. Clarkson, whether by accident or entirely on purpose, wrote a column that landed exactly on that fault line. And that's precisely why it spread so fast. Now here's the detail that changes everything. Diddly Squat Farm, the very same farm Clarkson built his second career on, sits inside a British agricultural system that itself runs on public subsidies. Farming in this country, at scale, has for decades relied on government support to survive volatile weather, crashing crop prices, and rising costs. Which means the man mocking people for taking public money runs a business that has, in some form, also taken public money. Is that hypocrisy? Or is that exactly Clarkson's actual argument, that the system as a whole, farmers and claimants and everyone in between, has become so tangled and so easy to game that almost nobody in Britain is fully innocent of relying on the state in one way or another? That's the uncomfortable question his critics rushed past. And it's the question that turns this from rich TV presenter insults poor people into something far more complicated. Because if Clarkson himself benefits from public money to keep his farm running, then his column wasn't really punching down at all. It was, in his own twisted way, pointing the finger at the entire system, including himself. Whether he meant it that way is something we'll probably never get a straight answer to. Clarkson rarely explains his columns after they're published. He lets the reaction speak for itself, then moves on to the next one. This isn't actually the first time Clarkson has used his column to poke at a subject everyone else tiptoes around. It's become something of a pattern. Say the unsayable, dress it in sarcasm, let the internet lose its mind, and quietly walk away, having started a national conversation that politicians spend years avoiding. And whether you think he's a national treasure or an out-of-touch millionaire playing farmer, one thing is impossible to deny. Nobody in British media right now can start a conversation about welfare spending faster than a man best known for driving fast cars and shouting at sheep. The real story here was never really about one email. It's about a country that's exhausted, on both sides, of talking about who deserves what, and a farmer with a newspaper column who just lit the match again. So was Jeremy Clarkson being cruel? Or was he the only person in Britain brave enough to say what millions were already thinking? That's the real question buried underneath all the outrage. And it's one Diddly Squat Farm itself might not be able to escape from, given how much of its own success has quietly depended on the same system Clarkson was mocking. If you want to understand exactly how Diddly Squat has survived on more than just farming, the beer, the pub, the subsidies nobody talks about, that's a story we're covering next. Subscribe so you don't miss it.